In other news, police stopped a suspicious neutron in a routine traffic stop. He wasn't charged with anything, so they let him go. Today you're going to be working on Can You See Me Now, page 4. The Can You See Me Now is what you're going to be doing essentially is mapping a magnetic field. A magnetic field being that force that's around a magnet that's not detectable to the human eye. This presentation is just going to walk you through these 7 steps and then have you take your time and be diligent in making the best magnetic field representations you can. Before we take a slightly closer look at each of the 7, let's just quickly read those. You're going to tape a short piece of thread to a pin, making sure it hangs level. You can tape a magnet to this paper. It says tape magnet here. Touch the head of the pin to the north pole. Begin each time at the pin head. Draw pin chains half the length of the pin from each pin head. Start with a tight leash, then as you map farther from the magnet, allow the pin a longer leash. Touch the pin point to the south pole and repeat steps 5 and 6 for the pin points. A little slower here with you. You're going to tape a short piece of thread to a pin, making sure it hangs level. Now, most of the film canisters you have should already have a pin, tape, and thread all attached. There are spare supplies available if you wish to redo the making of the thread and pin tape combo that you have. The hanging level is so that don't hold by the tape, hold by a little bit of this thread, that's your leash here, and let it hang level. Now it's probably not going to be perfectly level, but you don't want to have the pin being all kinds of wampus pointing at an extreme angle. So fairly close, parallel to the ground is going to work just fine. So short piece of thread, tape, pin should already be in the film canisters, but feel free to improve upon them if you'd like. Step 2, tape a magnet to this paper where it says tape magnet here. The crucial thing is to, 1, recognize you're probably going to have circular magnets rather than these rectangular ones. And you're not taping them down flat, larger surface area onto the paper. You want it standing up as if it's coming off your page. So tape magnet here, making sure it's vertical, thin side tape to the paper and not laying on its side. We have enough pins and magnets for you to each draw your own magnetic field representations in your study guides. You won't need to pair up and work with neighbors on this one. Step 3, touch the head of the pin to the north pole. If your magnet has a piece of masking tape on it, it's actually the north side. It absolutely does not matter which side is which for the purpose of this activity. What you need to worry about is, touch the pin to the left side of that magnet versus this other side, the right side. Don't worry about the importance of north versus south pole. The pole of a magnet is just the area on the magnet where that force seems to be the strongest. And certainly one thing I'd recommend is you're going to get the film canister with the tube magnets and relive those childhood days. As I always say, the people that make the best physicists are kids. You're going to take those the magnets, and do what you did as a kid. You take the 2 magnets, they kind of gently snap together when they're attracted. Then take one of the magnets, turn it the other way, play that wonderful game of taking and pushing the magnets together, and you force them, and maybe you'll get them to touch as you squeeze and hold them together in place, and you get an enormous sense of accomplishment that'll carry through the day, that you're able to force those magnets together as they want to repel each other. Again on number 3, touch the head of the pin to the north pole. Just choose one side and make that, call it your north pole. Keep in mind the other side being the south pole. It's not crucially essential for the mapping of your magnetic field representations that it be north and south. You're going to begin each time at the pin head. Okay, what is it we're doing each time? Each time you're making pin chains. So you're making a model or representation rather of what the magnetic field lines look like. So where it says begin each time at the pin head, in your study guide you'll see these little marks to the side of one of the magnet faces, and you'll touch the pin head to the pinhead to the side of that magnet, and then start slowly moving out the pin. Remember, you're making half the length of the pin. So you in one hand are holding the pin. Remember not to pinch at the tape. Let the pin swing freely. It may not come to a perfect rest, state of equilibrium, but as you can see what it seems to be doing, go ahead and use your writing hand and trace underneath. Well, not trace, draw underneath that pin. And so if you started here, you do a trace, a drawing, move forward so that you're at the end of that pin length, draw underneath half the length of the pin, move the pin forward, draw half the length, and keep doing that for each of the pin heads. So that's what we mean by draw pin chains. These are the pin chains, half the length, so mark underneath half of the pin from each of these pin heads, and you'll find a decent place to stop. You're not going to draw off the edge of the table. You'll get a feel for it quite literally. You start with a tight leash, then as you map farther from the magnet, allow the pin a longer leash. So this would be a long leash. This would be the short leash, so not pinching the tape so that the pin's able to freely move, and then a slightly longer leash as you get closer to the edge of the table, farther away from the magnet. Now touch the pin to the south or just merely the opposite side of the magnet and do those pin chains, 5 and 6. Do those pin chains again for the pin points. So you'll see on the other side of the magnet what looks like pin points. Page 5 is why you have 2 magnets. You follow pretty much the same procedures as you did to make the image of page 4. This time you'll have 2 magnets. Again, it doesn't matter which one's north-south. What matters here at the top of page 5 is that the 2 magnets are attracted to one another. So as those magnets are snapping together in your hand, just pull them apart. Place the one in your left hand onto the tape magnet here. Remember, keep the magnet standing up. And then the magnet that was in your right hand when those 2 magnets were touching each other and attracted, tape it here. Then touch the pin point to that side of the magnet and make those pin chains from each of these pin points to about halfway, maybe a little farther. And then tap the pin head to this side of the magnet. Doesn't matter if it's south or not. And then make those pin chains to about halfway over the page. For the bottom half, you need to set the magnets up so that they are repelling one another. Repulsion. The same thing will apply. Touch one side of the magnet here to the pin point. Make those pin chains. Go about halfway. And then touch the pin point to this side of the magnet and go about halfway again, making those pin chains. My final tip to you is to remember the pin is not a sentient being. You don't want to be uttering, my pin's not working, it's not doing what I want to do. You're simply observing the world around you as the pin is interacting with that magnet. To ensure that we'll be able to look at the various type of fields that you're able to represent on your pages, you are absolutely going to try and do all 3, but I do want you to be very patient, diligent, as I said earlier, in making these representations. So you are going to do all 3. You're going to take your first letter of your surname, your last name, so in my case Smith, letter S. I'm going to start on this field down here. And then it doesn't matter the order that I do the other 2, but I do want to start here. If my surname began with K for Kent, I would then start over here. And this one is the attraction setup. And I would be very diligent. When I get finished making this representation, I can go here or I can go over here. Those of you with a surname beginning with the letters A through F, maybe Clark, you would start here. And then it doesn't matter the order that you do the other two. You are to try and do as much of all three of these field drawings as you can, but please start in the field where your surname letter is. Enjoy mapping around a magnet.